Welcome to AI for a Better World. What if I told you creativity isn't something you're born with? What if it's a choice you can make every day? And what if I told you that in a world run by AI and algorithms, that choice might be more powerful than ever? Today, I'm joined by Dr. Zorana Ivcevic Pringle, Yale scientist, creativity researcher, and author of the new book, The Creativity Choice. Zorana is going to help us tap into the messy, magical power of being human, whether you're a dreamer, a doer, or just feeling a little stuck. This conversation might spark your next big idea. Zorana, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Zorana, your book says creativity isn't a gift, it's a choice. But let's be honest, in a world where AI and algorithms tell us what works, how do we find the nerve to go off script?
I really like this question because it reminds us of something that was always true. It is not the case that in the time of algorithms, it is important to play it safe. Creativity always had uncertainties related with it, and these uncertainties are unpleasant, and people want to avoid them because uncertainties are psychologically experienced as risks.
Well, let's face it, moving along from that point, every breakthrough starts off a little weird. The Wright brothers wanted to fly. Steve Jobs wanted to take the keyboard away so that we could basically do everything on a smartphone. Visionaries break rules, but it's risky. And often it's a very lonely path. When the data says no, how do we still go?
Well, we have to make that choice. You mentioned that the title of my book is The Creativity Choice, and that is the major and most difficult part of creative work. It's not that people lack ideas. If you ever been in a brainstorming session, ideas fly. People have ideas. When we talk about these difficulties, they are two particular kinds of risks that we are facing when doing creative work. One is the risk in front of ourselves. Can I actually do this? By definition, creativity is something that is new and original, and therefore you haven't done it before and you cannot be certain. And the other big risk is social, reputational risk. What will those who matter, one way or another, whether those be art critics, whether those be supervisors, whether those be funders, going to think about it? Are they going to think it's crazy? Are they going to think it's silly and plain out insane? What will that social cost be? And you can think of in the time, as you use the example of the iPhone being born at a time when every single phone had a keyboard. So you have to be willing to take that risk, not necessarily be a natural born risk taker, but be willing to take a risk, although, well, it might not work out and it might not be pleasant.
I want to stay on this a little while longer. We're already starting to see that AI can mimic Brando, for example, sample Aretha, and even, hit a high Whitney style note. We're beginning to see that, AI is capable of learning how to do these things. But I don't see AI yet being able to dream up the next Billie Eilish or start the next major cultural revolution. What, in your opinion, makes human creativity, the spark, not the remix?
I really like that you use the word remix because that is exactly what AIs do. They have all the collected knowledge of the internet and some knowledge, some misknowledge, some opinions, some ideas out there, and it's remixing it. And humans do that too. This is not to say that humans do something that is fundamentally different in that sense. That part is similar, but what is truly different in human creativity is what in science we call problem finding. Saying, okay, this is a problem worth working on, but how do we approach it? How do we think about it? Even if a group of people had the same general problem, they are all going to approach it differently. There was a classic study in the history of creativity studies where everybody, all the participants had the same general problem: make a still life drawing. And they had a large group of objects they could use. But what happened is that those who really played with the objects ended up being most creative. They weighed objects, compared them, arranged them, rearranged them, stepped back, played with mechanical parts so that they can do full exploration. That is the part of human creativity. And that is something that AI cannot do.
Great. You know, one of my favorite parts of your book is Elizabeth O'Brien transferring what she learned through different creative projects. What does her journey teach us about reinvention and staying creatively alive in uncertain times? What does she teach us?
So for people who have not read this chapter in the book, let me give a little bit background. She was a creative scientist, studied education. She thought that she was going to do this for the rest of her life, but then had an opportunity to start in a position at a research institute because of her side project with a group of friends from college. Were wondering, what if there was an app where you could get to know your friends better? Didn't take off in a huge way, but she learned lots of different skills that got her into working with technology. This is how creative life works. You are not sitting and planning it out step by step, but allowing experiences to grow from one another and to cross-pollinate.
Great, great. Well, okay, I have one final question, and I'm going to put you in the hot seat. For the dreamers, for the doers, and those that are stuck. Whether someone's chasing a dream, building something new, or just stuck on step one, what are your top tips for getting unstuck and sparking that next big idea?
The first step is taking the edge off of that emotional, overwhelming experience. When we are experiencing this, they are things we say to ourselves. We say to ourselves, you should have known better. You could have, you should have. But if we imagine that it's not us in this situation, that it is somebody else, somebody we care about, then what would you tell a friend who's experiencing this? You would not tell them you should have known better. And showing kindness to yourself is going to take the edge off emotionally so that you can start with techniques to open up your thinking. And that brings us, okay, how do you open up your thinking to get unstuck and continue that dreaming and doing that you are mentioning? There are different ways we can open up our thinking. One way, especially when we are in a bottleneck, is to take a break. That can be very hard for people to do because we all have constraints. We have time constraints, we have deadlines, and we usually feel that we cannot take a break. We cannot afford it. You don't have to take a break like take a vacation. You can take a break that is doing something else. Work on something else, continue being productive, but let your brain rest in relation to the thing that you are stuck. And sometimes something that feels almost magical happens, that just an act of verbalizing what is going on to somebody else can spark an inspiration. But at other times, it is going to be conversation that leads from one place to the other.
Zorana, thank you. Thank you for joining us today. I want to say to our audience, please get her book, The Creativity Choice. It's a great read. I enjoyed it very much and I recommend it. She reminds us that creativity isn't just self-expression, it's self-leadership. It's how we navigate change, challenge the norm, and shape the future we actually want to live in. So thank you for being here. We wish you lots of luck with the book, and we hope you'll come on and back and tell us more at a later date.
Thank you very much.